Welcome to Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis. Let's talk about length. Length matter? Well, my man Jonathan said, hey, what happens to a racket after you string it? That's a good question. Stay tuned. All right, so question from Jonathan Kim here. I really enjoy your YouTube channel, and subjects you cover are really interesting and I learn a lot from them. The question I have is whether the length of a racket is affected when strung. I heard it shrinks a bit after the racket is strung. Is it true? All right, so I've covered this Fed racket, but it's been sitting in the case since 2015. It's been 6 years. So that racket shrunk because it's got gut on the main, which is holding tension, and the poly has pretty much zero tension now. So what's happening to that racket is that it's pushing more this way than this way. Therefore, it's pushing this and the sides are coming out. So it's rounder, as I talked about in the past. So let's talk about length here. Let me see if my man Jonathan is right. So I took a CX400 that I have in my demos, and I have a tape measure. It should be 27 inches. At the pack and at the back. Tip to the end of the head guard, 27. So that is fine, 27. Another demo, blade, V7, tip to tip, 27. Yes, yeah, by a smidge, if that. Someone must have worn out that head guard. Last one, Ultra. Tip to tip, 27. Now these, these have been strung maybe like within the last month. Let me take one more racket from up here. Let's see. I mean, according to this thing's been here since April. I don't know if that's true. Hopefully it's not. But so this has been strung for a while and sitting here since April, and it is now about to be October 1st. Tomorrow. No, 27. Tip to tip. Yeah, right on the dot too, if you can see it. So the answer to the question is, if you're doing it correctly, no, it doesn't shrink it. It doesn't shrink it at all. The only time it shrinks it though is when you do your mains tighter than your crosses. So if you do it 2 pounds, it's probably not gonna make a whole lot of difference. If you do it 4 pounds and constantly do it 4 pounds difference, you'll probably lose maybe a 1/16 of an inch and probably crack your racket at some point, because you're compressing this down into this a little more and making it bulge out this way a little bit more. That's the only time in which you'll shrink the racket. I've known people who do that on purpose because they want this part to be wider just from the string job itself. They feel that it's easier to spin the ball and they have a little more control over it. I'm not quite sure what the thinking is. I mean, I just tell them, I was like, if you're sure you really want to do it. And I'm talking about 8 pounds difference, sometimes up to 10, tighter here than here. So you're basically really compressing this down, losing about 1/8 of an inch to bulge out on the sides. So what happens is it usually cracks right here when you do it though, like down in under here, because you're putting so much strain here, and then when you hit it, it basically kind of gives in the shoulder area here. But that's the only time in which you can kind of shrink a racket, is if you purposely string that main tighter than that cross, or if you accidentally do it. That's the thing. You got to make sure that when you put it on your stringing machine, especially if there's only 2 points on it, meaning that it only clamps in at the top and the bottom here, and you don't have the extra holders, on a 6-point machine, that if you're just holding here and here, that you're basically going 1 string, 2 strings back and forth. On a 2 mount machine, when it's just holding here and here, it's gonna compress more. That's just how it is. But you got to make sure that it's tight and it's tensioned out, because if there's any kind of give, it will compress in which you will lose some tension, because it's going to press together in here, and then when you do the crosses, it's going to compress back the other way to push this back out. And you don't want this frame to be doing too much of this and this, because you will actually damage the frame in the long run. So make sure it's clamped down on the machine tightly. Let me just show you, because I don't know if you guys are understanding. Let's go to the machine real quick. All right, so I have this is a 6-point machine, so it's a little different, okay? So I just wanted to show you. I gotta be centered first. Okay, so I'm in the center. Okay, look, bring it in. So you see how there's tension there and there's tension here, okay? So I feel the tension. We need to be at a point where it's nice and tight like that, okay, where we can't move it anymore, so that there's no movement, look, in the racket, right? People think it should be loose. No. If this is loose, it's going to compress. We don't want any kind of compressing when you're pulling the main strings, because what's going to happen is it's going to push out this way on the racket, and then when you do the crosses, it's going to try to push back out this way to go this way. So we don't want, see, I'm not using the brace, and it's tight. It's tight. We want it like that. Okay, so that's a tip for you stringers. If you don't want a shorter or a broken racket, to make sure that these are on tight, okay? Not overly tight, but definitely tight where you can't move it, okay? So Jonathan, thank you for the question. Keep your rackets at the right length, usually 27, guys, okay? Thank you for watching Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis.